What do you do when you feel like a long-time dream is just within reach, but suddenly a dozen or so roadblocks are thrown up in front of you? Sean and Melissa had always dreamed of building a self-sufficient homestead in rural Idaho. Unfortunately, Sean has a serious chronic condition, and for that reason they knew they couldn't live too far away from good medical care. They finally saved up what they felt was a substantial down payment and began preparing to sell their home in another state. That's when they began thinking very seriously about their move, and they realized there were a lot of questions that they needed to have answered before they could make a wise purchase decision in Idaho. After researching Idaho towns that were within an hour's drive of good medical care, they settled on Emmett, a small town only 30 to 40 minutes from Boise. The first thing they had to decide was whether to try to buy land and build their dream home or to buy an existing property. A quick internet search of existing properties showed that there really wasn't much on the market in the Emmett area that met their needs. Sean and Melissa decided that if they were going to move to Idaho, they wanted to do it right and build a homestead that met their exact specifications. It was at this point that they realized that they knew absolutely nothing about buying raw land. They left their kids with Grandma and Grandpa and flew to Idaho to meet with an agent who had been recommended to them by a friend who had used this agent for his own move to Idaho. As they drove around the Emmett Valley with the local agent explaining what would need to be done to develop each of the pieces of land they saw, Sean and Melissa began to realize that developing raw land was going to be much more expensive and time-consuming than they had thought. Buying an easement for access, building a road or bridge, drilling a well, putting in a pump, doing percolation testing, and installing a septic system. These were just some of the expenses that caught them by surprise, as they had always lived in a suburban development with city or county roads and utilities. Even trash disposal was something they hadn't considered. They knew that they wanted to be self-sufficient in their power needs by installing solar panels and putting in a gasoline-powered generator, but they just hadn't thought through the other costs that would be involved in developing a rural property in Idaho. Feeling discouraged, they confessed to their agent that the whole project was starting to feel too expensive. They had seen several beautiful properties in Emmett and had fallen in love with one in particular, but were concerned that even with their substantial down payment, their dream would be out of reach. At this point, the agent referred them to a local lender who specialized in land with construction loans, a type of loan that Sean and Melissa didn't even know existed. They had already gotten a pre-approval from an internet-based lender, but the agent suggested that a local lender would be a better choice for successfully obtaining the financing they needed for the project. She told them that they needed someone who was on the ground in Idaho and who understood the ins and outs of building on raw land. There's just no way that an internet-based lender would be able to do that. Before Sean and Melissa flew home, they were able to sit down face-to-face with the local lender, who explained to them how a land loan can be transitioned into a construction loan. They were also able to talk to an excellent local builder recommended by their Idaho Realtor. This builder knew the area well and had built many homes on raw land. He really seemed to understand their needs and the type of home they were looking to build, and he assured them that he could work with them within the budget recommended by the lender. Within 24 hours of returning home, Sean and Melissa called their Emmett agent and asked her to put in an offer on the property they had fallen in love with. Within a day, they had a signed contract with the seller, thanks to the fact that they had a solid letter of pre-approval from the local lender. Excited and happy, they began drafting a timeline for their big move. Their agent on the ground in Idaho began helping them with some of the preliminaries, coordinating with their builder, the county, and other government agencies. So I guess the moral of the story is that while buying and developing raw land is not a cheap or easy process, it can be done if you know the right people to help you. Your local realtor should be a really good source of information to start the process, but make sure they know the area and have helped with land sales in that area before. Remember, a local lender is crucial. Please don't try to use one of those internet lenders. They just don't have the information they need for making an Idaho land loan and seeing it through to completion. Have questions about buying raw land and building new construction in Idaho? Hit me up in the comments, and if I don't know the answer, I'll find out. I'm Laura Triratnobus with John L. Scott Real Estate in Boise, Idaho. Thank you again for watching. Please subscribe.